For those that don't know me, I'm Ron Van Epps. As of about a month ago, I'm the president now, so I get the. Thank you. That's true. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. I'm going to be brief, but I'm going to introduce the project, and I'm going to introduce the folks from Halliburton Root who are going to walk through the animation. We think you're going to be very excited to see it, but I want to set the stage a little bit. Start with talking about how did we get here? Why this now? Why this project, right? So we did a survey. We got the results last December, and overwhelmingly, this was prioritized. When I say this, I'm talking about this space, the living room when you walk in, the entryway, and the cocktail lounge. We're going to talk about that. That's what we're talking about in terms of redoing this. And so from the survey, 70% of the people felt like that it was important to update this space. So when you get 70% of folks around here in favor of anything, I think that's a big positive. So we started moving forward right away. This has been going on since January, just to set the stage. This isn't something that just popped up. We've been involved. We actually contacted Eric in January and started looking at concepts. We felt it was so important, we enlisted another architect to get a second set of views. We ended up loving what these guys have been doing, and they've been involved at the club for a long time. So we think you're going to be very excited to see the animation and what we're doing. A couple points I want to make about it. We're not doing this just to slap new carpet, new furniture, and have the same room. We're not changing the footprint, but a big part of what we're doing is changing the utilization of the space. Not just this banquet space, but I think when you see the living room and the cocktail lounge that's been redesigned, you're really gonna like it. And the idea here is improve the functionality. If you think about our club, most of the activity happens on that side, right? We've spent a lot of time, we've redone that. We haven't touched this side of the club in more than 20 years, since the clubhouse was done in early 2000s. So it's clearly very dated, and we don't really use this space, but it's an important asset of the club, and we think when you see what's being laid out here, you're really gonna like that. Couple other points is we feel like, and you're gonna see when we talk about the lounge there's ability to use it in a lot of different ways. One of the things you're going to see from the animation is the ability to close that off and make it a room, right? When you walk in now, if you're having a party in there, it's never really clear whose party it is. Am I part of that? So it'll be a much different ability to use it as a boardroom, as an overflow. We believe that, the club, the space in the Ridge Room gets full on Fridays and Saturday nights. This is an opportunity to have some additional space at the club. So all that's going into what we're doing and why we're doing it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Halliburton Root folks. I hit on them a little bit earlier in terms of their involvement here, but they've been involved since we did the clubhouse more than 20 years ago. They also did the Ridge Room and the pool fitness area. So they're very familiar with not only our club, but they've done almost every other club on the North Shore. So we really think they understand what we're about and what we're looking for, and I think you're going to be very excited to see what they're going to walk through. After the animation, I'm going to come back and talk about timing, cost, how we're going to finance this thing, and kind of what the next steps are, and we'll have plenty of time for questions at that point, but if you have questions during Eric's thing, feel free to bring them up as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Reisinger.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's great to see everyone. I'm Eric Reisinger, managing partner at Halliburton Root, and I have Michael Claudio here with us as well. He's a senior designer, associate principal at Halliburton Root. And what we want to do is kind of take you down a little bit of a path to show you kind of the history of the project and really the evolution of this. And so, Michael, let's just go to the next slide. But one of the things that I think is worth mentioning is back in 2016 when we were doing the last town hall, one of the items that kept coming up for the casual dining project is when are we going to address the banquet facility? When are we going to take care of the east end of the club? And so it bears to note kind of the evolution of this clubhouse. So back in 2004 when the clubhouse was completed, if you think about it, 2001, 2002, the project was being drawn by a firm out of Texas. And the evolution of club kind of culture, club utilization, it was really at the tipping point of changing at that time. So part of what happened was an incredible project here, getting the bones of the new clubhouse put back in place, right? So it's torn down between the women's locker room and the men's locker room and rebuilt. The budget, the timeliness, and obviously the risk of being without a clubhouse for that time was very challenging. So when the clubhouse was completed, there were some spaces that were already transitioning to be less useful in terms of club culture. So the casual dining project is an example of that. When we talked about the need to flip what was the pub with the grill, because the two spaces were disproportionate for how members would like to use the clubhouse today. So we're going to kind of talk about that with this banquet, and kind of the East End refresh is kind of how we start to look at it. So we'll go to the next image, Michael. So one of the things that's interesting about the clubhouse is just the kind of tradition, Western stick style, looking at kind of what is here architecturally. We'll go to the next image, and really we'll just look for the interiors. So these are some of the old interior photographs of what this used to be prior to the renovation that you guys did in 2004. So you're going to see some interesting elements to this. We'll go to the next image. And this is the current living room today. And what you'll notice is a walkway to the women's locker room. You'll see that there's an effort to try to bring in borrowed light. But in the entire time that I have seen this club over the last 20 plus years, it is, in our opinion, a fairly underutilized space. And of course, it's what we're being told as well by the membership. Other than waiting for your car at the end of the event when it's being pulled up, it's not a space that you're drawn to after dinner, pre-cocktail function. So it's something that certainly we want to make sure we're addressing. We'll go to the next image. So one of the things that we want to talk about is if you look at this middle image, you'll see this is the corridor down to the women's locker room. And you see the beams running across in the ceiling. So trying to bring some design elements to it. They don't even carry through into the living room space. Then when you're standing here and looking down these hallways, what's happening is that we're kind of losing the character and the feel of what we're looking for at this club. So again, at the time, exceptional in terms of utilization, being able to do what we needed to do, but over the years, it's not as functioning as well as we would like to see it function for the clubhouse. So we'll go to the next image. So the entry and the reception desk. This is the area where it's slightly no man's land in terms of when you come into the clubhouse, because the greeter there, the receptionist, is sitting out in the middle of everywhere. So at the apex of when you come in, a cold spot just in terms of weather, could be a hot spot in terms of the summer, and so really never an anchor point and really no kind of primary focus. So you're going to see us address this area. Then when we look at this lounge space and we kind of see the imagery that's in front of us, where this space starts to not serve what we would love for it to do, and that is this. You can't make that a private room. It's always open. So the events that I've been here for different functions, we're not sure if I should be in that room. Should I be in the living room? Should I be in the banquet room? Am I allowed to be in that room? And so we're trying to do two things. We feel we need to create a signature room for this clubhouse. So you're going to see us try to address that. And at the same time, one that's highly functional, that you could use for board meetings, you can use for pre-function spaces for banquet, you can have your own private event in there, it can serve as a card playing area. So there are a lot of things that we think we can increase the utilization of that space. And one of the key elements of that is to give it some character and really an association of what is it supposed to be doing. And so the carpeting in there, the furniture in there, it's not really working with what we see as kind of the clubhouse for utilization for the membership. So we'll be talking about that space also. And then the banquet room. And so it's in need of a refresh. I think it tells the story on its own just through the imagery. And so we're looking to, and we're working with Kelly on this as well, to really create an opportunity where this space can have some life back into it, have a neutral palette so that it can be dressed up for different events, but really function well and give us a sense of a kind of coming into this era of 2025, 2026. So Michael, we'll go to the next. Okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into an animation video. So we're going to do a walkthrough of the proposed spaces. So what we're going to do is we'll just play it through first, and then we're going to play it again, and then I'm going to come back to it one more time. It's a little fast, but then we're going to kind of walk through the different rooms of this. The thing that I think is important when you look at this is it should be completely different from what you're expecting. It will not look like the prior spaces. We are changing things. That corridor to the women's locker room, we are trying to make sure that there is actually some privacy maybe going back to that corridor. The borrowed daylight doesn't work as much as everybody can tell me, well, we get daylight. I understand that, but nobody's there when the daylight's coming through. So we're going to talk about that. So you'll see this in the video, then we'll go back through it. Now, Michael, do you hum on this or no? Okay. So again, main entry when you first come in. Now we're turning in and we're starting to look at the living room space. You're going to see we start to define that space with some columns that drop down, new ceiling treatment, new header, and really trying to give us a sense of where it belongs. And if you go out there today, you'll see the current ceiling actually bleeds into the current hallway. Now as we walk down this hallway, you can see a little bit into the lounge. Those doors will close off. Still honoring what we have in terms of the banquet at the east end, but we're going to turn right and we're going to turn into the lounge. So this space is intended to be flexible, serve banquet functions, serve PDRs, being able to have multiple uses in this, and we'll show different floor plans that can show seating arrangements in here. Again, now the banquet patio, being able to see out, widening that opening, widening the door so we can really have an indoor-outdoor feel. And now heading into the banquet facility. So now these are the two rooms that we're actually in, and you'll see you in the west room as well. All right, so we'll go back to the beginning again. And then Michael, right when we come in, we'll hit the pause button. Okay, pause right there. So as we talked about with the main reception desk, when you first walk in, the reception desk is on your left-hand side. What we've done is now we've built that into a space. So we have a window opening for the receptionist. We now have a digital board next to it for all the messaging that's happening inside the clubhouse. And again, the final detail of that and how we build it in and make it look, kind of custom and permanent. But now with coming into this space and with the wall at the end, no need to have the chairs there. Just have a nice simple credenza and just be able to come in and navigate where you're going to go in the clubhouse. And one of the things that's interesting is the corridor down to the left. What we're hoping to do is have enough ability to also refresh that corridor. Look at going to a hardwood if we can, and being able to really update that space. So we start to tie in both the corridor that's going to the banquet rooms, as well as then going down to the casual dining of the men's locker room. Okay, we'll turn right. So when we look at this living room space, and I would encourage everybody, we'll pause right there, to really walk through this when you leave here this evening. And what you're going to see in the living room space is there's no identity in terms of where that living room starts and stops. It bleeds into the main hallway. There's no rhythm and symmetry there. Some of the proportions are just not quite coming together. So what we're trying to do is create this really rich, deep coffered ceiling, offer this lighting that can be dimmable, flexible, and at the same time, give us a sense of place where you feel like you would want to hang out, whether it's before dinner, whether it's after dinner, certainly during the events. And one of the things that we've been working with Christy on in terms of just looking at how we use these spaces is trying to clear out some of the furniture, as much as furniture that we have. Because if you guys recall, a lot of the furniture ends up in the hallway when there's an event. So it's just lining the walls. So trying to really be cognizant and diligent about how we're using furniture. So This is just a representation of what we're studying. This is certainly not the final piece, but certainly representational, trying to give these rooms a little bit more breathing room in a sense that you know where you're going to go sit, have a conversation, but not feel like we're all being packed in there. And so, yes, we have left out the piano. That's something that somebody else will make a decision on. I'm not making that decision. So going to painted walls, we're going to leverage whatever. So in terms of infrastructure, we're leveraging all of the existing infrastructure. So electrical, mechanical, et cetera. So obviously new lighting, we'll be distributing the mechanical equipment, but certainly working with the infrastructure that we have, but reproportioning the fireplace. Looking at now a painted wall. Looking at perhaps now, instead of having the borrowed daylight that's coming in that kind of strange breezeway hallway, look at some artwork, perhaps a mural that can go in there, and really try to add character and life, but kind of back into this space. One that is intimate, that can feel just as great in the wintertime as it does in the summertime. So we'll hit pause right here. So one of the things that I think you'll notice when you walk back through your own clubhouse, your ceilings are really tall, okay? It's great, but it's slightly in between of, does it need to be taller or should it be shorter? And so part of what we're trying to do is really bring a scale and element kind of back to these spaces so that they feel appropriate in size for the events that will go on in there. We want this living room to be accompanying the lounge and the banquet room when it all needs to be in full use. So it can certainly accommodate the banquet functions as you guys have been currently using, but at the same time can also feel intimate and appropriate for the scale if there's only a few couples in there. We will be refreshing the restrooms as part of this process. And now as we kind of head in, and we'll pause right here, one of the things that we're working on is creating an entryway into the banquet kitchen. So off that main hallway, across from the lounge, it would be nice to be able to have direct access. So food isn't being brought down the long corridor and having to change in terms of how it's going to be delivered. So really trying to create an operational efficiency that we currently don't have. And so that is also complementing what we're doing inside the lounge space. And currently, in the lounge space, we have the service bar. So that service bar is now turning and fully functioning in the banquet spaces. And that's why you're seeing kind of that kind of 6-seat bar. It can serve as a service bar. It could be a sit-down bar. It can serve kind of as a banquet function. So we're really trying to give that bar a multi-purpose use, not the same kind of destination bar that we have in the casual dining project, but certainly one that can give you a lot of different utilization of these spaces. We'll head into that room again. So we'll hit pause right here. So important to go to now a stone floor in that lounge. We do want it to feel like you can go right in off of the patio, not feel like we're getting the carpet dirty, and just really have a different texture and feel of that space. And at the same time, opening up still back into the living room space so you can come back and forth, have this bar that is backlit. We're not, as we're working through the details of that, but really make this an elegant space where the bar doesn't have to feel like it's being tended to feel that it feels good. It should look good when it's not necessarily in use, look great when it's in use. And at the same time, we have also worked out a detail where we could give access through the women's lounge locker room area into this lounge space. So card players could go directly from that space into the lounge, have card playing, and then go right back out into the women's locker room. And what's interesting about that is near the end of the project, and Rob Walker and I were working with Jim DeRose and the team, that space kind of didn't quite get figured out. So there's that long ramp for ADA access, and there's just kind of a lot of space that we think kind of is wasted in there. So we're trying to reclaim that space, give some of that back to the women's card room, at the same time give us access into that lounge. And we think that could be really a multi-purpose opportunity to still solve the ADA, but really enhance what is at the kind of the east end of the clubhouse. So what you're seeing in here and what we're working on, and we'll hit pause here. So backlit on the bookcases. They're deep bookcases, really trying to give us character and feel, certainly to be determined what is stored, what is displayed in there. But the feel of this room, the wood is intended to be hand scraped. It wants to look like it's been here for 100+ years. We want it to have that feel of authenticity. So it's hard to communicate in a digital rendering. Just doesn't do it as justice as we typically would see in person. But that is what we are currently studying. But the design context, the concept, the intent is to really give us a room that feels that it's been here from the original part of the clubhouse, and it's not something that was additive after the fact, but it's really integral to the heritage and kind of character that is Sunset Ridge Country Club. We'll pause right here. One of the programmatic elements that came out of our meeting was to make sure that we were really addressing the outdoor banquet space, making it feel that when you have an event in here, you can open up these doors, leave them open, and go back and forth. And we can do that now because we can close down the lounge. So instead of having all the spaces absorb whatever the weather is outside, just the lounge can do that, so we can airlock the lounge, shut that down in terms of indoor-outdoor effect, but not affecting the living room, not affecting the banquet room. So we think that's a very big positive for the utilization of this space. And again, Michael, I think we've doubled the opening of that room. Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying to do, and we're going to pause right before we go through this threshold here, that's unique, and you'll see it in the plan, is we're creating 2 entry points of the banquet room. So right now, when you come down that main corridor, there's no differentiation between the east entry, the middle entry, and the west entry. Now, in the entire time that I've been coming here and working and meeting with different groups, I'm either coming into the east end or I'm coming into the west end. I almost never come in through the central doors. That just doesn't happen. The other thing that we're trying to do is figure out what to do with this kind of old indentation where the band, quote unquote, used to set up. We need storage. So we're trying to really capture what this wall can do at the south end of the club here and try to capture storage, create distinct entry points for the east end at the west end, still take advantage of the existing divider walls that we have, but refinish those, reclad those. So really trying to leverage the elements that we do have. But here's the thing that you won't see again. You will never see the 2x2 tile again. So all that's going away. Okay? All the lighting is being updated. Okay? So we're going to go to large format acoustical panels. We still need to have access to the equipment up above the ceiling, but all of the gridded work that is distracting to the eye, that is going away. So when Michael takes us into the room, you'll see the coffered ceiling. You're going to see the opportunity. And this lighting package is intended to really flex and change with you. We're showing you kind of the all lights on, but we will have a package where we can dim this down. We can change the mood of the room atmospherically, make sure that this room could respond, whether it's Sunday brunch for Mother's Day, whether it's Easter, whether it's Christmas, you name it. We're trying to really have these rooms be able to serve the membership, also serve your banquet functions, but really become a space that you can spend some time in. So Mike, we'll kind of walk through to the end. And so in this space where we have the current indentation, we're looking and we're working with Jeff on this, is trying to get a stone wall here that can really now go back to some of the character and elements that we showed you at the beginning of the presentation. We'd like to have that backlit, be able to change the mood and atmosphere, but really give us a visual anchor point inside this space that we currently do not have. And at the same time, all of the coffers that you see, we're keeping those. We're going to be adding to it. So we're not taking away. We're just going to be additive to the details, similar to what we did in the casual dining project. Now we're working on the neutrals, the palettes, etc. That continues to be developed. But I think this gives us a sense of the stage that we're at and really kind of the intent of the design as we're pulling that through. So capacity of these rooms doesn't change, still remains the same. So everything in terms of its utilization is there, but now we pick up, we think, additional spaces, additional utilization in the lounge and in the living room space. Do you guys want to see it, the animation run through one more time without me talking? Okay. Ron, I've exhausted them.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Thank you. Great job. We're going to have time for questions here in a minute. I'm sure you have some, but I'm sure you have questions about what's this going to cost and how we're going to do it and how fast is this going to happen. So I want to address that. So from a cost perspective, where we stand right now, and we're still working on nailing down some of the specifics, but hard construction costs with fees is about $3 million. The FF&E budget that we have right now is about $400,000. With fees, it's about $500,000. So you're talking about $3.5 million all in right now where we stand with what you saw. We think there are opportunities to make some changes. Things always happen, but I think we feel pretty comfortable with the estimate. What does that mean? How are we going to finance that? We obviously don't have capital reserves that are going to allow us to finance this project out of those. We have some, and they'll go towards this project, but the board feels like we need to have a $6,000 assessment for both resident and social members to fund this project. That'll generate roughly $3 million in fees for the project. We've got capital reserves that will allow us to fund the additional portion of this, and so that's what we're thinking about. From a timing perspective, as you know, this space is really important, but during the winter time is our opportunity to work on it. So we're closed in January, right? So the plan would be January through March, have this project done so we're ready to open for Easter, beginning of April. It's very important. So we're on a very tight time frame. We are looking at opportunities to potentially be able to wall off the lounge area in December and be able to start that sooner, which will give us a head start on the project. But we're going to be tight, and so we're going to have to. But to be able to fit it in between December and April, that's what we're looking at. So what happens from here now? So schedule-wise, we know we've got information we need to get to. We are also going to make this presentation. We're going to post this and make this available online so you can see that. We are developing renderings, which are going to show some of the pictures that will go in each of the locker rooms, one in the pool fitness center, and then there'll be a detailed rendering outside each of the rooms, the lounge, the living room. So you'll be able to see the pictures. You'll be able to see what we're talking about in terms of all that. That will all be available. Now, we're going to need to have a special meeting to be able to approve the assessment. So the plan would be we'd like to do it. I don't know if we'll be able to fit it in July, but certainly late July, early August, we'd like to be able to convene that meeting. We'll give you 2 weeks notice at least of the time frame, and we'll get you materials in terms of details on the cost and other information excuse me, that we've talked about today. So that will all be forthcoming. We're also going to set up an email address that you can send questions to, comments, so we can monitor those and solicit the feedback. So those are all important pieces. Understand that there's a lot of work, obviously, in terms of the design and the picking out of the colors and all of that. And we're going to have a lot of involvement in that. We've got people from the House Committee. We've got people from Jeff Eigel's committee, which is kind of our construction committee, with a number of folks who have very experienced construction backgrounds. So we feel like we're putting together a great group of members who have been willing to donate their time and be part of this process. So we intend to get a lot of input as we go forward here. So anything else I haven't covered? Jeff, Christy?
Good.